So after finding somebody that I love and then getting married, I didn't get the deep satisfaction that I was hoping for. I went from I went from crazy in love to this woman crazy. Sometimes marriage can literally feel like the Twilight Zone. Sometimes I ask God, I'm like, what is this? My wife went to therapy and she got better. But after she got better, some time passed, and then I noticed my uncertainty of, do I really matter? It remained. Then that's when I realized my wife wasn't my issue. Some of you are blaming your partner for things that's not their issue. What I discovered was that I had made an idol out of human connection. Yeah, I wanted to be accepted so bad. If we could rewind the tape of our relationship, most of my complaints were about my wife not being into me or us not being connected enough. Now, let me tell you what an idol is. An idol is anything that you trust more than God to give your life meaning and satisfaction. Okay, that's what an idol is. So I was wanting my wife to provide for me a certain level of connection. Problem is, she wasn't raised to love me. So she didn't know how to connect the way that I needed. But even if she had known, what I would have eventually realized, she wasn't my issue. I had legitimate evidence of what I was expressing. Now, my wife may not agree, but if I was to present this evidence in like relational court, my wife would be found guilty. What I mean by that is, I wasn't making up my complaints that I wasn't making this stuff up. Like what I said was happening was actually happening. But the fact that I was experiencing my wife's brokenness or her imperfection blinded me to the reality of my real issue. If that was a way for your partner to become perfect, then you'd be able to see, oh, these things inside of me are still going on. My real issue, which is pretty much the same core issue that almost, I believe, every client that I've come across has. My real issue was that I was too needy. You need too many things in order for you to be okay. See, I needed my wife to be a certain way so that I could be who I thought I was. I needed her to be a certain way so I could believe, so that I could be who I thought I was. Okay. Now, let me tell you what need means so we're on the same page. Need, something that is needed is essential. It's necessary. Needs are not optional. The things that I wanted from my wife, they weren't bad things. They were good things. I believe that marriage should be deep connection. I believe you should have deep friendship. I believe there should be a level of validation that we are supposed to get from our partners, right? But when you elevate your rights, desires, and dreams to the place of need, you put unbearable pressure on your spouse to be what they can never be. Now, you may be thinking, I don't have needs like that. Not for my partner. Like, yeah, I don't put pressure on them like that. Okay, but answer me this question. What do you get angry about the most in your marriage? Not annoyed, not frustrated, but angry, right? Or what causes you to be extremely sad and unable to function? There was a time when if me and my wife wasn't good, I couldn't function at work. Like I couldn't. And some of you may experience that. I thought it was because we were so in love and I need us to be good and now I can't function. Not so. Here's how you can find out if you've elevated what you want to a place of need. Let's say I loaned you $5,000. Okay. I loaned you $5,000 last month and you agreed to pay me back on the 1st. Well, on the 2nd, my only transportation breaks down and it's going to cost me $4,800 to get it fixed. Okay. Now I just paid rent on the 1st, so I don't have it, but I remember you haven't paid me back. So I call you Clarence, hey man, remember the money I loaned you? Like, I'm gonna need that. And it's the second. And so then you get on the phone and you tell me the reason you didn't call so that you and to meet up to pay me back is because you went shopping over the weekend and you overspent and now you don't have it. Okay, so let's look at the facts. First, you owe me. Meaning I have a right to expect payment. Like, I'm not out of line for expecting you to pay me. You owe me. Number two, you can't keep your word. You can't keep your vow. Why? Because you mismanaged your weekend. Just like you've mismanaged most of your life before you asked for the loan, but I wasn't around for that. If I have no other way to pay for my car, then I have an urgent need for the money you owe me. When you don't pay me, it's going to get ugly. I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be kind. Why? Because my need is urgent. And if you just did what you were supposed to do, I'd be able to get to work tomorrow. But because you didn't do what you said, you didn't keep your word. Now I'm stuck. You can't give me what you said you would, what you vowed to give me. And now I'm stuck. If I have a savings, let's say I have a savings. So I paid my rent. So I don't have the $5,000. I don't have the $4,800. I'm looking for you, but you say I don't have it. So then let's imagine I have a savings. So I can pay for my car. I'll just take it out my savings, right? So then that means I don't have an urgent need for the money that you still owe me, that I still have a right to, but I don't have an urgent need. So because I have another source, I can now respond to you appropriately about you not keeping your word, right? I can express how I feel without attacking you. So my question again is, what gets you angry and makes it hard for you to be respectful? That is an indication that you have elevated what you want to a place of need. Maybe you need your husband to spend more time with the kids. Maybe you need your wife to talk to you more softly. What I'm saying is the things you need from your partner are an indication that you have what Timothy Keller would call a counterfeit God. To be as plain and direct as I can, your marriage will never bring you the satisfaction, the deep satisfaction that you desire. It's not designed to do that, right? The reason you spin out of control when you don't get what you want, even if you have a right to it, is because your loves are out of order. I had a couple who came to me for therapy, and the husband felt like everything he did was wrong. Okay. His wife always had an issue. Nothing he did was right. And some of you may feel like that. You may feel like, you can never please your spouse. Okay. He would try to change and he would do what she's asking, but she would still find something wrong. And every time that happened, he would be crushed. Eventually, he began to feel hopeless. Now, his wife, she wasn't the softest woman. Right? Like, she could use some lessons in softness, but that wasn't his core issue. He didn't realize that he needed his wife's approval. That's why he was crushed by her negative words or her disappointment in him. He needed her to see him as good, so then he could see himself as good. He didn't know that he was expecting his wife to validate his identity. I call this ultimate or supreme validation. The problem for the husband was that his wife did not have the ability to validate his identity. For her to supremely validate him, she would need to be perfect. She can't be swayed by her emotions at any time for any reason because he is depending on her for validation. If at some point she's not happy with him or not happy with herself or simply just not in a good mood, she's going to invalidate him instead of validate him. Number two, she would have to know him inside out and better than he knows himself. She would have to know his deepest hidden desires, his biggest dreams, and his greatest fears so that she could validate his worth every time he doubted it. And then number three, she would have to be able to validate his value and sense of self 24/7, 365. Yeah, she'd have to be a person who neither slumbers nor sleeps, because she would have to always be willing, able, and ready to validate. Wife couldn't do this, right? And not only could his wife not do this, he couldn't do it for himself. And the thing is, for him to get this validation, he needs someone with at least these three, at minimum, these three qualifications to even be considered good enough to validate him supremely. There's nothing in all of creation that can give them this supreme validation. And see, though people have tried to use money, power, fame, human love to be the foundation of their identity, nothing has worked. So before you get a divorce, before you just settle on being roommates, examine your marriage and see what desires you've elevated to needs. These needs are an indication that you're on the idolatry train. Look, I heard the train. Your needs, you're on the idolatry train. I know for some people, this sounds like religion. I get it. This is not about religion, right? This is about doing life well on the planet. This is about true happiness. If you are honest with yourself, you know that there is a deep longing inside of you that you have been trying to fulfill in all kind of different ways, and it's still there. You can ignore what I'm saying, right? But as a human being on this planet, you are going to crush yourself trying to get from your partner what only a God can give you. And if the God you choose is not exactly like the God of the Bible, you will suffer.